So you're on probation and you're doing these, you're almost getting caught. You're almost getting caught. And you're doing these really large scale scams. How does it get to the point where you're on the run?
So I'm doing multiple scams, right? So it's not just that I'm doing the scams with the Reservoir Dog scams, right? I'm not just doing those guys.
Yeah.
I'm also creating other identities because I've got other people that are involved. They want to do a scam.
Mm-hmm.
So this chick I was dating, she wanted to run a scam. So I set up a scam. It's semi-complicated, but the bottom line is she ends up stealing a real person. We steal a real person's identity. I have a real person's identity. We get a driver's license in her name, open up some bank accounts, go rent a piece of property in her name, and I transfer the deed from the property out of the real owner's name. I transfer it into her stolen identity.
Mm-hmm.
We then refinance the house like 3 or 4 times. And so she starts going to these different closings. And her name is Allison, and she's pretending to be a Puerto Rican woman named Rosita Perez. Allison has brown hair and blue eyes. Rosita Perez clearly doesn't.
Yeah.
So Allison, when we make the ID, she dyes her hair black, curls it a little bit, and gets the pictures taken of herself. But before she goes to the first closing to get a check for like $100,000, we've got like 3 of these scheduled. She changes her hair color, she dyes it back like a dirty blonde, and she goes to the first closing and she gets a check for $100,000. Let's say I don't know what it was, like 95 or 105, whatever, roughly $100,000. She gets a check at the closing. They give it to her. We then go to the next closing. Well, at the next closing, the title person has her sign all the documents, but she's looking at her like something's not right. Looks at her ID, makes a copy of the ID, looks at it and says, this doesn't look like you. And she's like, you don't look Hispanic. And she's like, oh, I'm half Hispanic. What do you, what? And she's like, you don't, I mean, but keep in mind, the photograph was her. Mm-hmm. So she's saying, this doesn't look like you, but it's her. Mm-hmm. Granted, she had, the curly hair a little bit, but that's it. So Allison is like, it's me. And she's like, look, I'm not going to I'm not going to give you the check.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you sign the documents. You can get the check. I'll let you know. So she gets in my car. She said, yeah, listen, there's a problem. So we're driving down the road. She explains it to me. I realize, okay, that's done. It's over. We're not going back. She's like, what about the other closing? No more closings. We're done. And I, and it was probably more of a screaming and yelling, like, what the hell did you do? Well, I told you not to change your hair. Why would you change your hair? Like that, when she came in like the day before, and I was like, what did you do? What did you do? And she's like, I changed my hair. What's the big deal? It's still me. Mm-hmm. Sure enough. And that's like, it's not that I knew that was going to happen, but why tempt fate?
How'd you meet Allison? Like,
she was a mortgage broker.
Oh, okay.
And I had done some fraudulent. She worked for another mortgage company. She worked for another mortgage company. She couldn't get a loan closed. The owner of that mortgage company called me and said, look, we got a loan. We need it closed. And I said, great. And when guys would call me, I'd say, great, I'll come pick it up. I'll give you a $300 or a $500 referral fee. No, it's a couple $100,000. We want to close it. Well, then close it. Mm-hmm. Well, I can't close it. We need a W-2, or we need this, we need that. We can't figure out how to do it. So I go over there, and typically I convince them, just give it to me. It's not going to close. She was, you'd have to see this chick. She was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. She was gorgeous, very flirtatious, made me feel like I was thin and handsome. So, like, she gets whatever she wants. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, look, here's what you do. And I explained to her, do this, send it here, it'll close. Mm-hmm. And we closed it. Well, then she starts calling me, right? Hey, how's it going? We go to lunch. Next thing you know, we start sleeping together. She realizes what's happening. She says, I want in on this. So now we do the closings. We're on our way. I say, look, that check's dead. She goes, what about the other one? I go, no, it's all dead. We're walking away. Now, that was easy for me to say because for me, I had money. She's going through a divorce. She's broke. Like none of this did I take into consideration at the time, by the way. To me, it's like, nah, that's dead. We're done. We'll start over again. Well, and to her, in her mind, she was about to make, we were getting probably, that was $1 million scam. Mm-hmm. She was about to end up getting, whatever it was, half or 1/3 of $500,000 in the next week. Now she's got nothing. So she says, look, let's at least cash this one. And I had a buddy named Travis Hayes who had been, we've been friends since high school. We were like best friends, right? Really close friends in high school. We were still close. Travis was running a scam. This one, hers was in Clearwater. His was in Orlando. So I'm getting all over the state at this point, right? So he's running an Orlando scam that's already yielded $500,000, maybe more. Mm-hmm. He's still we're still refinancing properties, right? So he's about to close on another $500,000 worth of properties. He's got a bank account that's open. She says, let's give it to Travis, have him deposit it in his account. He's already pulled out like $300,000 out of the account. And she's like, shouldn't be a problem. I was like, no. And she goes, let me call him. She calls him. I think I called him and I explained the situation. He's, do you think it's okay? And I said, no, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay at all. And he's like, no, it's not a big deal. Just give me the check. So I give him the check. He goes, he deposits the check. They say they're going to hold it till it clears. That was kind of a thing back then. It takes, I don't know how long it took, 5 days, 6 days, whatever it was. He was supposed to go back and it would have cleared and he would have been able to start pulling money out. Mm-hmm. And so I call him one day because Allison's bugging me. So I call him and I go, hey, where are you at? He goes, I'm actually on my way to Orlando. And I said, oh, okay. So but let Allison know I'm not getting any money. He said, the bank manager called and said that because the check was over $100,000, they have to witness me endorsing the back of the check. Mm-hmm. Or they had to see my something, right? And for me to come in, I said, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Don't go to the bank. What do you think's wrong? I think the cops are waiting for you. That's what I think's wrong. And he goes, no, the cops aren't. He goes, man, I'm in the parking lot right now. I just pulled in the parking lot. There's no cops. I'm like, they're not going to be in squad cars. And he's like, no, he said, it's fine. You're overreacting, bro. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, you're shaking like a little girl, bro. Calm down. I got this. I'm cool with the manager. Like the manager, because you've chopped it up with the manager, he's going to let your fraudulent check go through. So he walks in, the cops are in there. They locked the door. This told me later, they closed the door, locked it. The cops are in there. They grab him and they bring him downtown. He didn't say anything. He won't say anything. That's not true, by the way. But here's what he told me. He wouldn't say anything. I told him I'm not talking to you, coppers.
Oh, he told he told you, but he actually did.
He actually did talk to him. So, what ends up happening is we can't get in touch with him.
Yeah.
So we're calling and calling and calling, and then finally I decide, you know what? I'm not going to call his cell phone anymore. I'm going to call the name of the person he was, the synthetic identities number, right? So I go and I call the synthetic identities number. I call and I say, somebody answers it and I go, hey, is so-and-so there? Mm-hmm. And he said, and it's a gruff, authoritarian voice, this is law enforcement. And he's like, no, who's this? Mm-hmm. He goes, no, this is officer so-and-so. Who's this? And I go, I was like, this is Lee Black. He goes, how do you know so-and-so? I was like, oh, no. Click. And I just hung up and I called for like a payphone. So I turned around and I said, he got arrested. And then later on that night, he showed up on the county website, the arrest website showing he had been arrested. And the next day he calls me and he asked me to get him out of jail. Like, hey, you got to go. So I have to give his brother-in-law money. We get him out of jail. He actually got out
for bail.
Yeah, he got out for like nothing. And here's what I should have known. He was cooperating. It went from like $300,000 bond down to like $10,000. Mm-hmm. So it's $1,000. So right then, I didn't know it at the time, but obviously that means we're going to let him out of jail. He's cooperating. Mm-hmm. So They let him out of jail. I go and I get him a lawyer, a state. This was state, by the way. It wasn't federal. So I get him a lawyer for like $15,000. I he comes, of course he tells me, look, they asked me a bunch of questions. I told him that, he made up some story about he's working with another guy, but he doesn't know the guy's name. He made up a name. Like he has this whole kind of thing where he tells them about me, but not me. And he's like, and the numbers, none of the numbers led anywhere. So they all lead to cell phones that are only being used for those scams. So it's a dead alley or blind alley. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, I'm paying him, like he's coming in, man, my truck's no good. I need another truck. I buy him another truck. Hey man, the electric's going to get turned off and I don't have, I need $1,000. Of course, here's $1,000. I don't know I'm embarrassed you had to ask. Here's 1,000. A week later, he needs 2,000 for this, 1,000 for this, 2,000 for this. He wants to start a tree trimming company. He needs to buy a tree trimmer. How much are those? 5,000? Of course, that's 10. So I give him another 25,000. Starts like a tree trimming business, which he runs to this day. What I don't know is that, the whole time he's actually working with a task force that's been put together.
Federal or?
This is state at this point. It's a state task force because there's multiple counties involved at this point. And it wasn't hard for him to explain. Like this comes back to Reservoir Dogs. All he had to say to the officers was, listen, you got to let me go. I can't do any prison time. I'm going to tell you about a much, much bigger scam. And they go, okay, well, how can you prove that scam? Pull up Hillsborough County's tax appraiser website. Okay, look up the name James Redd. Look, all of these were bought 6 months ago. 6 months later, they're all in foreclosure. Pull up Lee Black. All of these were bought. Look, 6 months later, all of them are foreclosure. Hey, pull up James, pull up Brandon Green, pull up. So all of these are going in foreclosure. I mean, it's like, that what I thought was so cute, not cute. It was just stupid. And so they put together a task force. He's working with them on the task force. And we're still buying houses, flipping houses, doing everything. Cause I believe him. I believe he's not, he's saying, look, if I have to go to jail for, a year or so, like, and he's also paying, he hasn't paid them back yet, but we're saying he can pay them back. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, look, if we get to the point, when we get to that point, like, we'll pay them back. But we haven't paid him back yet because we have no way to show where that money came from. We can always go to like one of his relatives and give his dad 40 grand, give his mom 20 grand, that kind of stuff, and start putting money that way. And all that money was taken out in cash too. So we could always show up with a chunk in cash. Regardless, it's still in the process. And I think we're still in the process, and it could be 6 months or a year away because it's a slow thing. I've already been through the process my first time when I got in trouble. And it was a year, but from the time that I was spoken to until I pled guilty and was sentenced. So I'm not concerned about it. Well, that's happening. We're still flipping properties. And one day I have a buddy named Steve Sutton. Remember the sheriff's deputy? Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, it's funny because like I've done bad loans for police officers, sheriffs, lawyers, doctors, like, across everybody across. These aren't like all,
yeah, everybody.
Guys that, these aren't all like, construction workers or guys that work in, or mechanics or something. These are like legitimate people that have credit problems or whatever the case may be. So one day I'm sitting at work and I'd been getting phone calls for the prior week from people at title companies saying, hey, Matt, wanted to let you know, we just had some subpoenas served on several of your files. And I'm concerned, like that had me concerned. Then a guy named Jeff Testerman starts making phone calls. Jeff Testerman is a reporter for the St. Petersburg Times. He's calling people saying, hey, I noticed that you sold a piece of property to Lee Black. Have you ever met Mr. Black? You seems like, and they're like just hanging up on him or saying, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure what that guy's name was. Let me call you back. And I'm getting phone calls from people. So I know something's up with the newspaper. Now I know something's being looked at, but nobody's really talking. I know that there are subpoenas being served, and I'm nervous. I'm very concerned. And then one day I'm in my office and the sheriff's deputy walks in, Steve Sutton, in his uniform too, which everybody always stiffened, when he would walk in. So he walks in, I go, Steve, I said, what's going on? He's head, and usually he's jolly and laughs and stuff. And he goes, and he says, I got to talk to you outside. I was like, okay. I walk outside. What's up? And he says, I used to date this girl in the, like the Tampa Police Department or something. Right. And I was like, okay. He said, she showed up at my house this morning at like 6:00 in the morning. I went, okay. He said, she said that she's been working on a task force. And he said, apparently one of your buddies got arrested in Orlando. They're investigating some other thing in Clearwater. They're investigating a ton of properties here in Ybor, Tampa Heights. And I mean, there's like 100 properties involved. And my name came up because you've sold some properties to me, which I had. And he's like, so she came to me and said, look, your buddy Cox, he said, I was like, okay. He said, well, the task force is on you. Mm-hmm. And she said to stop talking to you because they're going to come arrest you in a couple days. Mm-hmm. They just handed over the task force findings to the FBI, and the FBI is going to come arrest you in a couple days. And she said not to talk to you because you're going to cooperate. And because all white collar guys cooperate. So she thinks you're going to cooperate and not to talk to you because she's afraid you're going to get me hemmed up. And she said just to walk away. And he was like, so I thought you should know. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, oh, well, first he said, what should I do? And I go, tell him that I arranged all the loans for you. You came in, you signed the paperwork. I filled out all the documents. You signed the paperwork. I arranged everything. I'm like, you're not a mortgage broker. You don't know if this is legit. Like you have perfect credit. You signed the paperwork. You walked away with a check for $30,000. You don't know.
Yep.
And he was like, because he did it, because he had a job. He was a sheriff's deputy. Like I'm not I went in, I applied for a loan at a bank. They said you can buy the house and we'll give you $30,000. So of course I'm going to do that. That's not going to happen, but he doesn't know. And I said, just tell him, tell him you'll cooperate. Like, absolutely. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, I'm leaving, bro. I'm leaving. I said, I can't stay here. I can't go to prison. Like I was just sentenced. I'm on federal probation right now. Like the judge isn't going to be cool with me getting popped again. Like, I mean, I can't do it. Can't do it. I said, I'm leaving. Can't go to prison. I'm adorable, bro. Like, I can't, I saw Shawshank Redemption. I know what's going to happen. I can't.
You're too good looking.
Yeah, I can't do that. That's not going to happen. Like, I can't, I'm not going to defend myself against a guy who's 6'3" and tatted up. No. So, and I'm no benefit to a gang. Yeah. Like I'm a nonviolent, soft white collar criminal. So I was just like, yeah, I'm leaving, bro. I'm leaving. So I actually went home. Well, actually, I started cutting checks to people, right? Mm-hmm. So I cut checks to Allison, to Johnny, to like everybody I could think of. Here's 5,000, here's 7,000, here's 8,000, here's 6, here's 9, and had them going to all these different bank accounts, pulling out cash. But this is like a Thursday at 4:00. So the next day they show up with cash, write some more checks, they go again. I get about 80 grand in cash. That's all I can get. I go home that night. I start packing my bags, and I was dating this chick named Rebecca Hauk. We've been dating about a month, and she shows up at my house. I hadn't returned her phone calls all day, and apparently we were supposed to go out, and I'd forgotten about it. I had bigger issues, and so I'm packing a couple of duffel bags, and she walks in, and she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I'm leaving." "Where are you going?" "I thought we were supposed to go out at such and go do something tonight." I'm like, "I'm leaving. It's over." And she says, "What happened?" I tell her what happened. This is what happened. She's like, "Oh my God." Like she had no idea.
Well, she had no idea about anything you were doing.
No, I barely knew her. Like, I mean, she's coming over 2-3 times a week for a month. Like this isn't love. This isn't, this is a booty call. That's all it is. Like we're hanging out, we're having sex, and that's it. I don't even know you. So she suddenly just begs to come with me. "You got to bring me with you. You have to this, you have to that." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like you've got a son. You have your mom lives here. And she's just in tears and crying. And she suddenly said, and this is what's so funny about it, is that she had just moved from Vegas
Mhm.
to St. Petersburg to work at the dog track, to work for a company that owned the dog track, right? A casino interest, or like a gambling
Mhm.
company. And she said, "You don't even know why I'm here." I was like, "Okay, why are you here?" She said, "I'm here because I was working for a law firm that worked for the casino company that I work for." She said, "I got caught embezzling nothing. It was like $10,000 or $15,000 from my boss because she had a gambling habit." And she said he didn't call the police because we were sleeping together and he was afraid his wife would find out. She said, so instead, he banished me here to St. Pete. My son just came to live with me. He's been caught sneaking out because the father had raised him. He'd only been living with her since she got to Florida. And she's like, I was going to send him back. He's failing school. He's smoking pot. He's been caught sneaking out after curfew. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know any of this. She's like, he was going back in December, or no, he was going back after the school year, which would have been like May. Okay. And I'm like, so where before 5 minutes earlier, I thought she was this sweet secretary, sweet, innocent secretary. And she's like, I've been married 3 times. I'm a gambler. I've claimed bankruptcy. I'm sleeping with my old boss. I got she went from this, thieving adulteress,
Mhm.
and I thought these are all really beneficial to my, my future plans.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have at that moment, I was so just flipped out and concerned, and up and leaving your life and everything behind. That's terrifying. And and so now you're alone in a strange place, in a
Is that
place
the first time you've done something like that, like leave to go on the road?
yes. So I'd never just up and moved, and keep in mind now I can't call home. I can't, I'm leaving. There are things that I feel like get you caught.
Mhm.
And I've watched tons of these TV shows. And, there are certain things that get you caught. And, one of them is keeping in contact with anybody in your old life. So I'm thinking that's not going to happen. Like I'm not contacting anybody. I'm leaving and that's it. That didn't really happen. I kept in touch. I called my mom every once in a while, but I was like, okay, that's cool. Fine.
Did the loneliness of that hit you early on or no? Like as you're packing?
I never did. Well,
You're leaving your life. I mean, it feels like a fundamental transition.
oh, listen, you think? I mean, listen, not just that. Like I'm leaving my son. I have a son, and I was leaving everything. I was just terrified of going to prison. And I mean, I don't know. It was just so stupid. It was just arrogance, and I should have stayed. Like I made things so much worse. But I also thought I'm smart. I can figure this out. Like I can change my identity, blend in. I'll be fine.
Aren't you already like people know what your face looks like?
They do.
And
But one of the first things I did was I got plastic surgery.
what kind of plastic surgery?
I've got a nose job.
Mhm.
I got what they call a mini facelift. They go in through your back of your ears and
Mhm.
they suck out all the fat in your neck.
Mhm. Does that change appearance much?
A little bit. I was balding. I got 2 hair transplants, 2 hair grafts. So the hair in my head, this isn't my hair. It's my hair, but it's from back here.
Mhm.
So they cut it
Looks
from here and
great.
I appreciate it. So they reimplanted it there. Got liposuction, just some, other stuff, and got my teeth done, that sort of thing. So and that was kind of like my plan. I'll take off. I got 80 grand. I'll steal some more money, But I let her come with me, and we ran up all my credit cards over the next few days. Packed up the car, traded in my Audi, and got like an Audi. I don't know, was it like an A6 or like a 4-door, like the big 4-door, whatever it was.
Mhm.
Got that and drove straight to Atlanta. And so I wrote a letter to my parents before I left, just explaining this is what's happening. I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm not going to prison. Love you. Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry. Sorry. I know I'm a disappointment. Sorry. Bam.